Hello and welcome to this our training course on working with sales forecasts. This is the 10th lesson, 10th and final lesson within the Sage CRM User Fundamentals course that we've been following over the last few days. Today we're going to be looking at sales forecast, building on really quite a lot of the information that we've covered in the previous lessons, especially around the workflow of opportunities. In this lesson, we're going to cover how to create a sales forecast and how a manager can view a sales forecast and be able to review it and report on it as well. It's going to build on other lessons which are already up on the Sage Support and Training YouTube channel, so I'd encourage you to have a look at those there. So this course is going to be finishing. We've got a set of lessons all going to be there, recorded and available to you from today, all covering this topic. As I said, this builds on some ideas that have already been discussed. And what I want to do is, before we go into forecasting, I'd like to explore really some of the concepts behind this so that we understand what we're doing when we go off to create a sales forecast. So let's have a look at some background information first of all. Now, we know that we're going to be focusing in on this lesson on the user's experience of creating a forecast and a manager's experience of working with their team's forecast, including the idea of setting quotas. But let's now get a sense of how everything fits together. So the first place that a user can meet the concept of sales forecasting is actually on the opportunities list. This is within the My CRM area. So imagine a user has just logged on. They're looking here, as you can see, the user Brian Little looking across at all of the opportunities that they're working on. And this screen has a number of different areas within it, and I'm just highlighting, first of all, the statistics on this user's pipelines. Now, the total number of opportunities is the total number of opportunities for the current stage. The forecast is showing the forecast value for opportunities. Again, if it's been filtered to a particular stage, then a weighted forecast. Now, the weighted forecast uses the idea of the value of opportunities for the current stage, that is the forecast value, multiplied by the certainty. And then that produces as well the idea that we've got an average forecast value for opportunities for the current stage, that is the total forecast value divided by the number of opportunities. This also then goes on to the idea of the average certainty, the total percentage of certainty divided by the number of opportunities, and a weighted average. So that's the average value multiplied by the average certainty. Now, this isn't, strictly speaking, what I'm talking about as forecasting, but this is a snapshot of data. And the figures that are displayed in the currency here are set within the user's preferences. So it may not actually be the currency in which the sales have been made. But this information all comes from the underlying opportunity. So if we go and look at one of these individual opportunities, and I'll maximize the area by just turning off coaching captions on this screen. Now, what you can see, again, there are two panels that show information about the value of the opportunity. We saw this in the previous lesson where we were working with leads and opportunities. Now, I've highlighted the forecast of the certainty field. Here with the forecast, I can see that this is the field that the sales user expects to get if the deal closes. And there is then the certainty. And this is a percentage certainty that this deal will close at some point in the future. As you go through a workflow, that certainty as you get closer and closer to closure will be increasing. So something that is a mere lead will have a low certainty. Something that you're negotiating and you're just quibbling over the final price, that's something that will have a high certainty of closure. Now, these fields are typically controlled as part of workflow. And so if we work through this and start refreshing what we've done in the previous lesson, the idea of working out through a workflow and changing the forecast value, you can see that the forecast and the certainty can be controlled here by the user. And note that the entry is in one currency, and that might be that the user is entering in euros. But when it comes to it, that the value of the forecast is changed during workflow, potentially to show any converted value displaying according to user preferences. Now, this is all assuming that the system is configured to use user multi-currency and has workflow enabled for opportunities. Now, quotes and orders are also used, as we know, within the context of an opportunity. And here we see the idea of the total quote value. This is a read-only field. This is the gross amount from the quotes associated with this opportunity, where the include in the quote total checkbox is selected. This value is not used for forecasting. So this is not part of what we would do. If the quote is set to a status of inactive, the gross amount from the quote is then deducted from this total quote value. If the quote is converted from an order, the gross amount of the quote is deducted from the total quote value and goes into the total order value. And again, the total order value field is a read-only field, and this is the gross amount of the orders associated with the opportunity where the include in quotes total checkbox was selected when we prepared the order. This value is populated only when a quote is converted to an order, and again, it's not used in forecasting, but again, these are financial figures which are showed. And if we step on, the important figure from a forecasting perspective is the forecast value, which we're indicated here. And in a ideal system, what you would have is the total quote value and the forecast value being synchronized either automatically or manually, ideally automatically, so the user doesn't have to think about it. And the only thing that they need to think about is when it comes to the certainty, and that even itself may be an automatically calculated change. So the forecast values can be synchronized with the total quote values using perhaps workflow, escalation rules, table level scripts, lots of different matters, lots of different ways of doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to return back now and look at the idea of opportunities. And so here we're looking at, again, the user opportunity statistics. We can see the forecast values contained within the pipeline area. You can see that the pipeline is weighted by a certainty assessment that has been given during the workflow. Now, this is not formal sales forecasting. Sales forecasting, the feature which I'm just about to talk through, offers a far more sophisticated way of reporting opportunity values in the whole of the pipeline against quarterly targets and then passing that upwards into a reporting hierarchy so that a company can get a true understanding of likely sales and cash flow value for the whole pipeline. It allows for sales users to flag opportunities in their pipeline to indicate whether they should be included in the sales forecast or not. It allows individual users also to use the pipeline as a starting point and then with negotiation with their sales manager to make forecasts based on their own personal experience as well as passing that up through the whole of the hierarchy. Now, to do this, we're going to just have a look a little bit in an admin screen. So I'm going to jump across into another browser window, and here this is a browser window where I've got a definition for a user called Brian Little. Now you'll see in the screen that, and it's in the second panel down, that Brian Little reports to Susan May. So that's his manager, to whom, when we come to look at forecasting, all the figures will roll up from Brian Little to Susan May. And in turn, Susan may report to another manager, and they may report to yet another manager. Sage CRM allows for as many levels of forecasting hierarchy that a company may need. So you can go N levels. It's unlimited in terms of the management of a sales team. Now, within the administration of the user, and here again I'm still looking at Susan May, you can see that the user is configured to use sales forecasting, but you'll also notice that a user can also be marked as to whether they're allowed to see all users in a territory or only their own forecast. So typically you would have a junior salesperson only able to see their own forecast, but a sales manager would typically see all of the users and be able to see all of the users across the territory. Okay, now we will see this in action. So I think we need to get going and actually start to understand how this all fits together from a user's perspective. Now, sales forecasting is all about understanding the importance that knowing how much money a business is going to get in is important in terms of its being able to make plans for the future. So you want to be able to predict revenue and manage that pipeline, to plan for the resources that you need, and then track progress as well. These are all of the features that the sales forecasting feature in Sage CRM provides. So let's get going and see this. Now, I've already hinted about some of our users and how they exist within a reporting environment. In fact, the demo data system for Sage CRM has Simon O'Neill as the worldwide sales manager, with a European sales manager in Tim McGraw, and Susan May being the North American and Canada, basically US and Canada sales manager, with the other layer of salespeople handling the different territories. So if we start to step in to this, we can see the experience from Simon O'Neill, the sales manager. So I've logged on and I'm going to go straight into forecasts for him. He's set up to use forecasts. We can see the tab here, and what I can do is then click to start to create a new sales forecast. Now, on this screen, which I will, as we get going, I will talk more about what's going on in this screen, but it's showing you the opportunities that are in play with target close by dates within each particular month. And if I scroll to the bottom of his screen, he can see all of the reports and what their forecast values for them for their reporting is currently going to be. Now, it's here as a sales manager, Simon O'Neill can start to set quotas, and I might want to drill down into one of my reports. So I've drilled down here, I'm looking at Susan May, and I can see that Susan actually is active in selling. So Simon O'Neill doesn't manage accounts himself, but Susan May, although she is a sales manager, is managing some accounts as well. And if we look to the bottom of the page, I've just scrolled down again, we can see all of the reports that this manager has as well. So Simon O'Neill can drill down, look at the information from Susan May, and then all of her subordinates as well. But if I step away and move up to the top again, I've returned to the top of, remember I'm logged on as Susan May's manager, Simon O'Neill. I'm at the top of Susan May's forecast area, and so any of the changes that I'm making here, I'm forcing, if you like, onto Susan May. I'm making the changes in her environment. So I could be plotting any of these quarterly forecast areas. This is all something that a system administrator can configure, but I'm choosing the particular quarter that I want, and for each quarter and each salesperson I can set a sales quota. Now, a sales quota in forecasting refers to this idea of a target or a goal assigned to the salesperson that they have to achieve within a specific period. Now, the base period here is the quota is for our months, and it's used to measure performance and guide sales efforts, and it can be set. If I'm going to be setting this for Susan May, it's going to be inherited all the way down, so I could choose a value like 300,000 for her, and then that's going to be passed through. So if I click, I just click continue. I should have clicked save, but you can see I'm given the option to save this here, so I'm going to click OK, and I've exited out of the sales forecast. Now, remember, I'm logged on as Simon O'Neill. But I was setting something for Susan May. It looks like I don't have any forecast set, and that's true because what I've done as the manager, Simon O'Neill, is to set the forecast quotas for a subordinate, and that's going to be a forecast that has been, if you like, started for those who report to me. So in order to demonstrate that, I've switched to yet another tab in my browser, and I'm going to log on as Susan May. And here you can see I'm on my sales manager's dashboard, and I can click on the forecast tab, and there is waiting for me an outline forecast that has been created by default by Susan's manager because Susan's manager set a quota. And so if I drill down into this, you can see the quota has been set. Now that might seem large, a 300,000 quota, but if we look across at what's in the pipeline, it looks manageable in terms of everything there. Now, Susan May herself can scroll down the page, and I can see the details of Susan May's sales team here. These are all of those who report to her, and I can drill down into one of those. I just clicked there in to look at John Finch, and you can see that John Finch has inherited the same quota. Now, that might be a little large for this particular salesperson, so this can be changed. And here I've altered the quota for John Finch from 300,000 to 100,000. So I can change this, and I can save this and then continue. Now we can see how the next level of salesperson experiences this. Remember, we've just cascaded a change all the way down from Simon O'Neill to Susan May, and now I want to switch over to another browser tab, and this time log on as John Finch. So here's John Finch's browser, and I need to click on forecasts. Sometimes the tab seems to disappear on me, but it is there. So I click on forecast, and then I can click on to the forecast that has been set for me. And here you can see that I've got my target set by my line manager of 100,000 for this month. Now I can look down and you can see all of the opportunities that are in progress. One of the quirks of the demo data inside Sage CRM is that all of the everything seems to close in the last month of every quarter rather than being scattered throughout the quarter. But here we've got what we're looking at, and if I start to look at these, do you notice how I can, for each potential opportunity, and as I look across and I can see the state of it, whether it's in progress, I can look to see what stage it is in the workflow, and I can also start to see its certainty percentage. Now, this is where I can fine tune whether or not I think this particular item that is supposed to be closing this month is going to be something that I can commit to. So I've got the choice of either excluding it and saying it's not going to come over the line, either because it's not going to come over the line, or I know that I've already lost that deal. I can commit to it, I can consider it to be likely, or I can consider it to be best case. So I can, if you like, have scenarios here which are going to be useful for what the company can bet on in terms of its revenue. And you can see that what I've done is I've assessed each of these opportunities, marking them as either best case or committing or likely or excluding, etc. So I can do each of these, and I can then choose to scroll up to the top where I am now going to click to have those scenarios be used to populate my forecast values in the grid at the top of the screen. This is where it's saying closed, commit, likely, best case. So if I click the little circle icon that is next to the month, you'll see that that gets calculated up to the top. Now I can save this and then I can continue, and I've got my item. Now, if I just drill down again, I can also save and submit, and that means it would be available to Susan May to see. If I just save, it's not visible to Susan May, but if I click save and submit, I'm basically rolling up my forecast to her. So back I go to where Susan May browser is. I can log back on the Susan May and drill down into my forecasts. There's my current forecast that we're working on for this quarter. And here you can see I've not calculated Susan May's figures yet, but if she looks down to the bottom, there is John Finch, and you can see that John Finch has submitted his quota forecast. And if I click onto John Finch's name, I can jump across here. And now, because this is a submitted value, I can put in a managerial override on that. I can put my own assessment to look at the deals that are in progress. And as far as reporting is concerned, I can fine tune that to think, well, actually, I think we're only going to do this, or I can say I'm pretty sure that we'll actually achieve more than that because, for example, in implementations, if only licenses are being sold, there's going to be another secondary services invoice. So I can use my experience to be able to fine tune exactly what's going to go on here. And you can see that's what I've done here, fine tuning John Finch's forecast to put my own values in at that point. And so if I save this, I can save and go continue, and I'm now back looking at where I've got John Finch's figures, and I've also got my amendment, my own assessment here as well. And so at the top of the screen, or rather if I scroll up just a little bit, I can put my own assessments for my own sales. So I can assess these, and then I can click on the little button that will cause all of the month's figures to be rolled up into the top part of the grid. So I've got here now my assessment set. If I save this, and do I need to? Yes, so you can see that what I've done here is I've saved this, and in the meantime, all of the subordinates have submitted their own values as well. The Simon Morris doesn't have any sales opportunities in progress, but I've not put a quota onto them for that. So here we have got the forecast entry. Everything is in place, and I can save to continue. I'm out of my forecast, but now it's a question of how do I start to use this information. So if I go across into reports, the most obvious place that we're going to use our reports or information is actually within reporting. We want to be able to share this and get information across the entire organization. I've chosen here my forecast summary report, which is inside the sales, and it will then allow me to retrieve the information and present it in a form that's digestible with a grand total, showing me across my data that I can see this is the information that is being reported on. And of course, I'm only able to report and see the people that are in my territories and my security rights that I can run. But a senior manager would be able to pull in all of the information across the entirety of the organization. So this is where we start to use the forecast value in our reporting to be able to inform the business. And of course, that any report that we have, which might have charts, which could then be represented within the dashboards, so that adds into the richness of the key the key performance indicators that the business might have. So let's remind ourselves of what we've seen. We've looked at the idea of sales forecasting. We've understood that any user has to have forecasting enabled, and we have to think about the currency that the forecasting is going to be rolled up to. You might be selling in one currency, but then forecasting in another. We would then have to go through the process of creating the forecasts. That's something that a senior manager can do just to be able to cascade that down to all of their reports. But this is how you select the particular quarter that you want to create the forecast for, and you can then within the context of each individual forecast, you've got a grid of all of the current opportunities in play. They have their certainty, they have their workflow stage, and what we need to do is provide a scenario to say whether or not they're something that you can commit to within this reporting period, whether they're actually likely or best case, or something to be excluded. And we can then click to refresh within our inside our forecast to bring that up to the top. And so what we end up with is this idea of forecast value being used with the certainty to provide a sense of the weighted forecast. You've got the sense of whether commitment is included, likely and best case, and so you have the overall scenarios to allow you to understand on whether or not that once you've submitted this to create a forecast history for everyone. Managers can review the forecasts, can be able to set quotas for their subordinates, override those quotas, and to be able to drill down into each person within our forecast to be able to review each month and the overall quarter's performance. The idea for those of you who are going to be looking at the system administration courses, which talk about the configuration of our sales forecasting, have a look at the lesson on forecasting. The setting of the forecasting is all done within the administration screen, data management. You can decide whether or not forecasts are overwritable, and so they are something that can be refreshed, or whether you work with a particular precision as well. keep everything up to date. Make sure that that you are bringing forecast values automatically into each of the opportunities within inside there. So it's quite important to automate as much as possible. If you are automating and you are using certainty correctly, then you'll find that forecast scenarios become very accurate, and managers can then review and get really on top of the figures as to where we are. So what we've looked at there is that sense of forecasting supports all of the visibility for data within Sage CRM. It really aids the financial planning. It allows the sales users quite a degree of control over how they report their figures using scenario-based sales forecasting, and managers themselves can put their own assessments in to produce nuanced reports which may provide a more accurate figure for the business as a whole. So we've looked now at sales forecasting within Sage CRM. We've come to the end of our particular lesson cycle. This is the user feature fundamentals. So let's see if anyone has got any questions at this point. Thank you all for coming along. These videos and recordings from the sessions will be added to the Sage Support and Training YouTube channel as soon as possible, and we will be communicating with you to say that they are now available to be viewed. Thank you so much for attending. I look forward to seeing you at future training events. Goodbye.